Whitepine, Whitepine, Whitepine. It's quite a show, isn't it? I mean, gorgeous cinematography, beautiful music, and most of all, a cast of wonderfully likable characters. Or is it? Because there's something in Whitepine that disrupts everything. Something that feels like it shouldn't belong in such a wholesome and seemingly mundane series like this. A murder, a brutal one at that. As I arrives at Whitepine Estates, a maid is slaughtered, and everyone is thrown into an investigation frenzy. And one question seems to lie at the center of it all. Who killed Mysticat? Disclaimer, everything from now on is my own opinion. Starting out, we have our pool of innocents. People who have a 0 or next to 0 chance of being the killer or an accomplice to the killer. People in this part tend to have morally good characters, no motives or actions that suggest they would kill someone that they knew. You might be surprised to find Clown on this list, because first of all, Clown is always the villain. Not! And secondly, he seems like such an obvious candidate, or at least be an accomplice to the killer. After all, he's very loyal to the Hemlocks, has shown to be a stern and no-nonsense type of guy, and I mean, well, just it's Clown, come on. However, the reason he ends up in the innocence list is because of what he does in Whitepine 7. When told Ivory is being heavily suspected of being the killer, and that everyone is now wary of her, he stands up for Ivory. He rounds up all the servants and tells them to not suspect her and to remain unbiased. If he really was part of the murder, why would he defend someone who is currently getting blamed for your crime? Especially if they're a very easy person to scapegoat. It doesn't make logical sense, and it's why he goes into the innocence list in the first place. Saraptor, Maddie, and Lopez all share similar reasons to why they're not the killer, and that's purely from a characterization standpoint. All these characters have shown to be really kind, positive, and overall stand-up people who lack any sort of motivation that suggests they could kill one of their own friends. I tend to value characterization more than others, so the fact that these people have qualities so distinct from a malicious and moralless killer puts them in the innocence list. If for some reason you don't buy that explanation, these 3 characters were all working in the kitchen when Misty was presumably found dead. Kanjay, however, has shown to be quite desperate for money, which could suggest he could potentially kill someone he knows to get money. However, as shown by Whitepine 5 and Whitepine 7 in his talks with Ivor and Zombie respectively, he still does not have money, which throws away the chance that he killed someone, and his only motive for doing so is no longer there. Also, he was helping in the kitchen the entire time. Ash, despite his seemingly overt calm nature and no-nonsense type, is probably innocent either. Why? Well, let's think back to his conversation he has with Maddie. It's clear that Ash appreciates and likes the wholesomeness and positivity of Maddie. So it just seems hard to believe for me that he could bring himself to kill Misty, who was quite literally the most positive and wholesome person at Whitepine, and a person he knows very well. I just don't think he will be able to hide such a guilt-ridden burden, like murder for days on end without breaking. Now let's move on to the Hemlocks. Some people say that the whole family is conspiring with each other to kill Misty, but I just don't believe that. Pyro, Izzy, and Moo were all together in the study when Misty was presumably killed, meaning they all have alibis on each other. During his talk with Moo, Zam is revealed to only know that Moo found the body, and sure, he's a hunter, but a hunter will have more skill than to messily kill Misty like that. Lastly, we have the explosive V. Now, V here quite literally vomits at the sight of the body, which unless they're a 5-star actor, it seems hard to fake. And come on, V is a goober. I feel safe saying he isn't the killer. And just characterization again. Pyro has a deep bond with Misty and is shown to be really nice. Izzy is a moral person, Moo is too meek, and Zam is described as a pretty nice and caring person if you just affirm him once in a while. And V is just too pure to kill Misty. All of these people lack the motives or means to kill Misty, let alone the malice required in the murder. Now Div, who out of all the servants in Whitepine, he's definitely the least moral of them all. I mean, he makes inappropriate comments on the day of Misty's funeral. He's the servant to Zombie, someone who is quite suspicious himself, and you know, he just acts off. Now the thing is with Div is that he was working in the kitchen when the body was found, and that gives him an alibi, and unless he slipped out off camera, it seems pretty improbable he had the time to be the killer. However, Div does have a breakdown in Whitepine 6, and it's implied that Div was not close to Misty. But then again, we are prying into his life and we are accusing his grief of being suspicious. Maybe he really did feel sad about it. We don't know. Div also lacks a motive for the killings, and it's hard to see him being involved with the killing. But personally, I would say. However, I would say he is the most suspicious of the innocents. The thing is, we can accuse anyone we see doing anything remotely suspicious in the show and go on a long tirade about how they're the killer. But the truth is, we barely gotten to know these characters. These characters have known each other for a very long time, and we are quite literally prying into the worst days of their lives, and we start favoring our observations on these characters rather than their own. So when Clown and Saracta say that no one at the mansion could have been the murderer, people who have been around these characters for a long time, mind you, their words carry a value to them that people tend to ignore. It's easy to point fingers and say that X person is the killer, but for me, I find it a very difficult thing to do. All of these characters all appear to be kind and caring individuals, and well, very unlike the malicious killer who slaughtered Misty at the end of Whitepine 1. Sure, it's easy to say they're putting up a facade, but the thing is, with Whitepine, it's a realistic show. Well, unless you're a straight up psychopath like Anton Chigurh or Lord Malvo, there's no hiding beneath a perfect facade. Like, come on, you can just say this for anything. Oh, Clown, it's just a perfect facade. He's a killer. Oh, I don't know, Div, it's a perfect facade. He's the killer. Or Maddie, it's just a perfect facade. She's the killer. But no, I don't like that. Cracks all form eventually, and what you truly feel will be brought to the limelight. And so there has been nothing to indicate that most of these people are truly killers. Sure, they do suspicious things, but is that really enough to say that they're a killer and that they're involved in a grand conspiracy? Well, that's just my thoughts on the innocence in this chapter. If we want to see some suspicious individuals, then we'll need to head on to chapter 2. Now, we enter the part of the video where our pool of characters start showing signs of legitimate suspicion, where they actually have reason to be suspected. They are all small indications to something deeper in their character, or they just have a solid theory to accuse them of. Let's start off with our newest addition to the list in Ross. Ross is currently under suspicion of being the killer due to him lying about not knowing anything about what happened to Ivory in Whitepine 7, even though he clearly saw Detective Prometheus take away Ivory in this scene. This is of course very suspicious, and the community has put him under fire for sure, as so far he's the only person who to willingly do something that is unfavorable for Ivory. In other words, he is allowing her to be scapegoated by Prometheus and is helping him avoid justice. This will make sense as the killer, as he will want to pin the crime on Ivory, of course. Others have also pointed out that Ross asked Ivory to get the shovel, which led her to getting caught by the detective, which helped build his suspicion in Whitepine 2. But then again, no one else knew that the detective was lurking around on the property, as shown by this scene with Sarapta. Some have also said that the only way for Borm to lurk around the mansion was if he allied with the gatekeeper Ross, but in my opinion, that doesn't make any sense, because like, just walk around, it's not that hard. There isn't a big fence, you can just walk around. He does give a weird foreboding mention about Usherwood, however. Then again, I find it very hard to suspect Ross. Like, Ross has been a very kind and caring individual so far. He introduces Ivory to the rest of the servants, he gives flowers to Ivory when she's in medbay, and he comforts V where he vomits after seeing Misty's body. People can lie for all sorts of reasons, and I don't think it's hard to imagine that Ross lied about not seeing what happened to Ivory for something that isn't inherently evil. Maybe he did it because he himself was scared of being the detective himself, which could be supported even more as so far as he lived in the gatehouse and probably saw Prometheus lurking around there a lot, so he probably got paranoid of Prometheus. Ross also lacks a motive to help or commit the murder. Well, one that I don't know of yet. Hell, from the looks of it, when he saw Ivory getting taken away, he left the room to go tell Div. And perhaps Div, trying to work in the zombie's favor, in best interest, he told Ross to keep quiet on the situation. I'm not trying to say that Div is guilty though. Just that, in the same episode, Bit, who was suspiciously seen running into the forest, this turns out it was totally innocent. She was just trying to just do some theater play. Now, the same innocence could be applied to Ross. Maybe he's doing it for something innocent. We just don't know. And, speaking of Bit, who is a strange fellow, I would say, Bit has the least amount of dialogue amongst the cast of Whitepine, not having a single line from the start of Whitepine 2 to Whitepine 7. So, one thing out of the way first, it turns out her running into the forest late at night was so she can do theater play. Not anything suspicious. In fact, I feel like a lot of seemingly suspicious things people do in this show have innocent reasons, but I digress. Now, the most incriminating part about Bit is when she, walks towards the vague direction of the murder in this scene, making her one of two people who had a confirmed opportunity to kill Misty. This gives her the means to commit the murder, alongside her general quietness. However, what she lacks is yet again a motive. One of the big things we can infer from Bit's character is that she wants equal rights for both genders, and as shown by her disguising herself as a male in the theater. Killing Misty does not seem to achieve that goal for her, and we don't know any other goals that Bit has, so it's hard to pin any motive on her. The next person is Zolister. Zolister, as shown by the episode so far, seems to be a pretty nice guy. He has a nice talk with Ivory and Whitepine 5, and he goes out of his way to make amends with a stranger that he believed he had offended. So why is he here? His character doesn't fit such a person that will help a malicious killer or be a malicious killer. He doesn't even show up until Whitepine 3 or 4, I can't quite remember. But it all stems from the very popular theory that Pyro is getting poisoned. He got someone to poison Pyro so he could kill him off, and then when Zombie inevitably dies, Zam will take over and his incompetence will destroy the company so he could swoop in and buy it for himself. And when Misty found out Pyro was gonna get poisoned, the person acting on Zolister's behalf killed Misty so no one will find out. It's a solid theory that could paint him as an accomplice or a mastermind of the killing. But then again, the whole conspiracy, I'm just thinking, conspiracies are just contrived in general, Not only has Zolister known Zombie for quite a bit, but these complex conspiracies don't belong in such a realistic show, you get what I mean? Which is why I find it hard to believe theories that involve a big conspiracy. I always took it for granted then that Pyro was getting poisoned and that it was basically true, but I never really thought about the possibility that he wasn't. Now, thinking about it, was Pyro really being poisoned? Sure, he vomits once or twice and he knocks over a cup of coffee, but that really mean he's getting poisoned? I don't really know anymore, and without that confirmation, I don't think Zolister is worthy of being a full-fledged suspect, given how, his innocent nature. He's known Zombie for quite a bit, and, people don't just hide under perfect facades where he was actually secretly planning to betray Zombie all as well. Now to someone that almost everyone suspected was the killer when they watched Whitepine for the first time, and that is Ivory. I certainly thought so, my friend thought so too. So why is Ivory suspicious? Well, come on. She shows up, she shows up one day and the next day someone is dead. She lost her memory. She's the prime suspect of Prometheus' investigation. And in this moment here, it seems like Ivory had a short window to kill Misty. She also doesn't mention that she woke up to play the piano on the morning of the killing to the detective. But there is also a lot of evidence that suggests Ivory isn't the killer. First of all, she's just not the strongest of people. She's known to skip meals, flubbing my lines here. She's known to skip meals, which will decrease her strength. Plus, she is on the biologically weaker gender, so it's hard to imagine that such a person could do that much damage to Misty, even as far as severing her arm. Next thing, Ivory is a very timid and passive maid who does not even know Mysticat. She does not fit the profile of a ruthless killer, nor does she have a motive to kill her. Speaking of motive, this will be the only time that I will bring up the secret videos, which are canon, apparently. In the secret videos, which I take as happening before Whitepine, Ivory is quite literally beaten into submission by Ebony, eventually becoming a very shaken, traumatized, hurt, and passive person that is beaten into not standing up for herself. She learns to hate herself very much, especially of a genocidal past in the other timelines. Whitepine is also her last chance of redemption, so the Ivory we are seeing here is quite literally subconsciously working against the urge to not just kill, but to do anything that isn't even remotely passive for herself. Killing someone she didn't even know will be a complete betrayal of her character as so far as we know. And by virtue of Ebony not showing up, it means she's doing good on her last chance. Or at least that's my interpretation, Maybe you think the secret videos happen after Whitepine, but we just don't know really. Then we have the person that everyone loves. He's the fan favorite. Everyone loves him, right? Prometheus. Who is meant to be the detective for this murder. He's actually the suspect of the murder himself. He is shown to be able to sneak around the manor without getting caught in Whitepine 4. He has an overt need to accuse and target Ivory for the murder, and has shown to be, not the best person, personality-wise. As shown by him beating up Ivory, he does have the mental capacity to hurt someone that he deems deserving of it, and might be able to measure up to the malice involved in the killing of Mysticat. His characterization shows that he's quite an evil person, with little room for interpretation as he acts outside of the law to target someone, even though the point of the law is to do things unbiasedly. But other than characterization, is there anything that suggests that he might be a suspect in this case? Well, many theories go that he got paid or hired to target Ivory as the scapegoat to get the real murderer loose. But I believe that it's more fitting that he is a representation of the discrimination faced by minorities, especially women, during that time period. He rather go the length to accuse Ivory of the murder than anyone else, and is shown to badger the maids during the Whitepine 2 investigation much more than the butlers, showing that his discrimination is not just limited to Ivory. I mean, with a killer lurking in the mansion already, you wouldn't feel safe in the manor. But with Prometheus on the outside, it makes it so you're not safe both inside and outside of the manor, and that's the point of Prometheus' character in my opinion. He's a representation of the times, not a suspect in this case, personally speaking. But he is suspicious, don't get that wrong. I personally interpret his character as someone who truly believes that they're carrying out the law, and by beating up Ivory, he is, in his own mind, doing justice for Misty, not because he is aiding the killer. But who knows, if he was shown to really be helping the killer, I wouldn't be surprised. I know others wouldn't. But if you want some truly suspicious people, you must venture to a very special pair of characters. After 19 minutes, we finally arrived at the crux of the matter. The two people that are the most likely to have killed Mysticat, being Zombie and Ivo. Let's start out with the former, shall we? Out of all the people in the mansion, Zombie has the most conservative views of them all, and the major theme about the show is changing times. Zombie is effectively stuck in the past, which is a major driving point of his character, as he is the most alienated person in his own house. So let's talk about the suspicious things he does. First, he is one of the few people unaccounted for when Misty is presumably killed, not being in the kitchen or with the other hemlocks in the study. In fact, he suspiciously walks away from the murder in the background, as you can see here, showing that something of priority has popped up in his mind, especially since, there's a dead maid lying in front of him. He's described as hostile by Pyro ever since he got outed. He does not think Pyro is ready to make big decisions for his company, and he fails to stop the detective when Zan brings it up to him that he is intruding. There is a lot of theories circulating on how Zombie, wanting to spite Pyro, killed Misty, or that he was poisoning Pyro so he did not inherit the company, and when Misty found out, Zombie had her killed. All in all, it seems pretty damning, right? Oh, we got the suspect. Boom, he's the killer. But if we gave Ivory the benefit of the doubt, I think I could spare some for Zombie too. Personally speaking, I don't think he was directly the killer for Misty. Seraptor jokes that he's gonna end up needing dirty maids to get him out of his bathrobe. No, he did for Seraptor, I don't know. But he's described as a fossil by Izzy, so he's not exactly in the strongest of shapes. He's actually quite weak. He's actually really weak. Too weak to commit the murder himself. He's a very old man. But he might have the passion to do it, so maybe he really put in the work to kill her. But that's just a thought. You would think he'll be out of breath and visibly, he's tired, exhausted after killing her. But no, he seems pretty fine. Secondly, Mrs. Hemlock. It's implied that she was quite the kind and liberal person, as Zombie knew this and married her, losing all of his emotions when she died. So he quite literally married into these ideals. So when she died, his old ideals came back rising up, and he doesn't know how to have a relationship with Pyro. I don't think he hates Pyro and wants to spy him by killing Misty. It's just that he doesn't know how to understand him and expects him to cast away his emotions like he did when his wife died. In Whitepine 7, he caves into 3 separate people. So his age is getting to him, really. I mean, he caves into Izzy to give money to Kanji. He caves into Pyro to let the maids and butlers go on their vacations early. And he caves into V to let him go on the vacation with the other Hemlocks kids. It's not enough to discard suspicions. To me, he's definitely very suspicious. I mean, the detective spiel, he just seems suspicious, doesn't he? But it does put down on whether or not he was part of the killing, at least to me. Now, onto the biggest suspect of the community, Ivo. He's one of the few people that has a confirmed on-screen opportunity to kill Mysticat, and in Whitepine 5, he abruptly resigns and leaves the show. He has a confirmed motive in money, as he needs money to provide for himself and his family, going as far to make a deal with Kanji so they can both provide for each other. But Ivo admits in that very conversation that he barely has money for himself, and he doesn't even leave Whitepine with as much as a bag. See, he's not even carrying a bag. Which might be an error, actually. He's carrying a bag in this scene, so that's debatable. But then again, you can always just say he could be lying, and I have my own spiel about, you can't just accuse people of being liars all the time, but here I can believe it, But then, there's his reaction to finding Misty's body. That has to be an act as well. And as shown in Whitepine 2, he's still shaken and needs to take medicine for Moss to help himself, to chill himself. Then again, it could also be just another act. Ivo doesn't even speak again until he leaves in Whitepine 5. The theory goes that he went and killed the Mysticat, went through the kitchen to get rid of the murder weapon, came back to the kitchen for his alibi, that eventually left after the investigation settled with the money he needed. Also, he's one of the few characters whose name is not the name of the voice actor. The voice actor's name is Quark, not Ivo. The truth is, we didn't get to know Ivo that well, and the few things we see him do seem very suspicious. There's not much of a defense for him. He truly does seem like he's at least part of this murder. This leaves the biggest room for interpretation on his character, and is why he is such a big suspect in the eyes of the community. It's hard to kill someone for money, but he did it for family, I'm sure I know other people that killed for their family. So who knows? Is it really narratively satisfying if the killer left for more than half the show? No, but Whitepine doesn't need to satisfy a narrative to be special, right? It's unique, it's about life, it's about the quieter moments in life, isn't it? It's a lovely show, and of which I have a lot of trouble pinpointing an exact killer. Maybe Ivo is just like Ivory. They share the first 3 letters in their names, and we are accusing him when he actually might be innocent. If he really was the killer, why would he make a foreboding message about how everything is gonna get worse? Is there gonna be more killings? and would just be fine with that? All the servants seem to respect him, so could he really have the malice needed to kill Misty? It could always be someone who had an opportunity off screen. We just don't know. So what is one to make of all of this? Well, I'll say Ivo has the biggest chance of being the killer, at around 35%. Zombie, 15%. Prometheus, I'll put him as 10% in aiding the killer. But it could always be someone else. No, there's still a lot of percentage that I haven't used up. It could be one of the servants that I haven't talked about. It could even be someone we haven't even seen. And judging by this scene where Zombie walks away, he goes through this strange hallway underneath the staircase. And if we look at the map, it looks like it's the only place that a secret entrance could fit, Parasite style. So there's always the lurking chance that it's someone that we haven't even met that killed Mysticat, and they did the brutal killing and sliced her arm off and everything. But I'm not here to discuss whether or not there's someone else that we haven't met that did the killing. Instead, I'm here to find out whoever that we have already met is possible of doing the killing. And it just so happens that after a lot of analyzing and a lot of guessing, that Ivo, of all people, just so happens to top that list. And with that, thank you for watching.